Good luck. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome to the presentation. First off, I just want to say sorry if this seems a little bit unrehearsed. It's because it's not been rehearsed. I'm just going to start off with some intro about who we are and what the presentation is going to be about, so I hope you enjoy that bit. First off, unless my presentation doesn't work, which doesn't work.
It's on the screen.
It is, yeah. There he is, brilliant. Who am I? I'm Gill. I'm the managing director of SoGoodStudios. More on that later. Push any images out of your mind of me in like a sweet suit making tons of fat cash. Being a managing director is way less cool and far easier than that. I'm a CGD graduate. I went and did Comp and Games here, as some of you are doing, obviously. We graduated in September, so a couple of weeks ago. Who is SoGoodStudios? SoGoodStudios is myself and Will and Sam over here. Will is our creative director. He does all of our art things. Sam's our technical director. He does all of the hard things. What do? We're a startup game development company. We run out of the Formation Zone, which runs in the Marine building just down the end of the road. Formation Zone is like a little incubator thing for startup studios. For a while we were developing our own IP while we weren't making any money, working on some of our own projects, stuff that we worked on when we were in CGD. For the last couple of months we've been doing proper work for hire stuff, client work. According to our website we do games, visualization and proof of concept. So far we only do games, but that's fine, that seems to be working for us so far. So, just to, I don't know how YouTube videos work on this.
Just click the button. It doesn't.
I will, I'll click the button, thanks Will.
If you don't click it,
Not even our technical director, and he knows how to YouTube. Yeah, so this is just a little bit of footage of what we were working on for the first 2 months. This is Tap Tournament. Hopefully. Yeah, this is our game Tap Tournament. It's a top-down 2D multiplayer single device medieval tennis game. Something very simple, very small. We wanted to work on it for the first couple of months while we were still getting to our feet, still trying to find work. Obviously it's in 2D because that means it's the best. So very simple concept, we just want it to be, if you can tap the device, you can do the thing. It's too loud for everyone.
A bit.
Yeah?
Try and turn it.
Sorry.
You're on YouTube, it's fine. Turn the YouTube down.
Yeah, so very simple concept. We want it to be if you can tap a screen, you can play the game. We're hoping to sort of make it like the equivalent of getting out a game of Jenga when you're at the pub. Something you can just have at a table and everyone can get involved with and learn very quickly. Yeah, so that's Tap Tournament. That's what we've been working on, what we were working on for 2 or so months. That's been on hold since we've been needing to actually make some money and do client work. So what's the presentation going to be about? Firstly, it's going to be what we did at university that we think contributed to us being where we are now and gave us kind of a head start, stuff that we would say you should all be doing. And then at the end, I'm going to do a bit on some of the things you have to do to become a proper company because some of that can be very daunting until you actually do it and then you realise it just kind of happens. So yeah, the things we did. We're all graduates from CGD, just so you know. We all started in 2012. We've spent a lot of time together since then. Yeah, and that's us graduating then. So the first thing we did was meet. Obviously anybody who's on CGD will know that the course encourages a lot of peer review. I imagine it's the same for any other courses you're on. When you're developing stuff, you need to fight to get the opinions of other people around you generally to make something good. So we did a lot of that, talking amongst ourselves. The first thing you kind of do when you come, if any of you are first years, is obviously you'll be learning your skill set, working out what it is you're good at and what's worth you spending your time doing. You'll also learn that it's really not worth you spending that much time on things you're not naturally apt for. So, for instance, when I first started out, I realised that there was no real point for me trying to do the art for my games because it just meant people thought my games were shit, largely. First year presents a lot of varied challenges. They're not necessarily all academic ones. Largely they're to do with leaving home and trying to learn in a new environment, all of that sort of stuff. If you can use all of the spare time that you have, because first year is slightly easier, to do stuff, to do extracurricular stuff, to start making a name for yourself. You can also just concentrate on learning how to learn at university. It's up to you. It can make up some time early on if you can really get your time management down. So the first thing we did was Night Slashers, which was a game that it's kind of the first game we started making as a team. We weren't doing any version control or anything clever like that. We were just all working on the same PC, whichever PC was in front of us at the same time, which actually ended up being quite a thoughtful type of development, because only one person's ever at the PC and they don't want to do anything that everyone else is going to say is stupid. So everybody has to kind of develop by consensus. It eventually became Tap Tournament, and we think it's still a laugh to play. This is some footage of it that we've dug up today. Again, just to show you what Tap Tournament used to be. This is the kind of level we were working at back when we were in sort of towards the end of first year. It hangs together well, it doesn't crash, it doesn't run at a particularly high frame rate, despite the fact that there's like 3 polygons. But it is also a fairly nice concept, and that was one of the things that we learned going through our first year, was how to build something that was within scope and was quite fun to play. Move off that back in. Cool. So moving into second year, I don't know how many of you are doing Preco integrated project? Any of you? Yes?
Next.
So it's next year, cool, right. So what integrated project is basically everybody gets into teams, you all turn up to a room and a whole load of clients come in looking for you to build a prototype effectively. They're not expecting the highest quality of work, obviously, because we're all uni students, but they are expecting, you know, deadlines, milestones, that sort of thing. So we were very lucky to have a brief from Mutant Labs kind of fall into our laps. We were just talking to Dan one day, and he just said he had it, and we were kind of the first people, you know, the first disclosure. So we pitched for that, and we got it, which was very cool. Once we met them, we realised they weren't necessarily looking for a product per se, they were more just looking for somebody to do some research into an idea for a design. It was all based around synchronization, aspects of synchronization that are in real life, such as in synchronized swimming, something like that, being pulled into games. So it was networking, that sort of thing, something we'd never touched before. We still weren't using version control properly, we were still just Dropboxing everything to each other, which of course is awful, but you'll come to terms with it. Working to client deadlines. We didn't have any real proper deadlines, but purely knowing that you have to go and show someone who isn't your course leader or whatever, something you're building is good for motivation. I mean, I'm not saying your course leaders aren't important, but something about them being part of university means it still feels like education, it doesn't feel quite as important. Yeah, so what we built was, we never really gave it a name, Sink Squad, Kitchen Sink I called it sometimes, and it was this. It was loads of fun. Unity networking, anyone who has done networking with Unity will recognize this bit where you try and hack together a connection. It did eventually work. Our synchronization was not top-notch. What we tried to build was a physics-based game working for multiple players. Everybody picks up a platform and bounces a ball around to get it into the goal. In the end, stylistically, we really liked it. You can see there's some stake sync problems already going on. We delivered this at the end of Preco to the mutants and a whole load of people who we thought knew what we were talking about, but had no idea what games were, which was fine. Yeah, and that's what we did for Preco. Doesn't really work, but it is cool anyway, so it's another thing that we've kind of got that we'd like to develop at some point, perhaps if we were a bit better at networking. Beautiful. And it is beautiful as well, yeah, so this is kind of Will coming into his own with his own sort of flair for design. We do a lot of flat designs, we do a lot of very nice sharp lines, largely because it keeps things simple, we don't have to worry about 3D models, and also because we like the style. Oh no, I'm skipping through the footage. I just want to go to the next thing. The GD Game Jam. So this was another thing in second year, towards the end of it. I think I'm not too sure about this. I know the shuffle. So this was kind of myself and Ryan and anybody else who was in GD Sock at the time. We ran a game jam. It wasn't in sync with any other proper game jams. We just kind of ran one. Hired a room upstairs, had everyone round for, was it 24 hours? Yeah, only 24 hours, which is not very long in game development. But it was a kind of a baptism of fire for some really important game design concepts. Well, firstly, we actually were collaborating all in the same room on different machines, which was good for the first time. We got our first idea of designing small stuff that you keep within scope. And then sectioning off that work for people to do, doing some project management, which is of course never that much fun. We did try and learn Git. It says we tried to use Git. We had never used Git before, and we decided to try and learn it whilst also doing a game jam. That was an awful plan. About 6 hours in, it was straight back to Dropbox. It had just been far too much trouble. And here's a fantastic time lapse that we took of the game jam, which kind of shows you a bit more of the feel. It will have the music composed by our composer for the team, apocalyptic chiptune, we like to call it. But yeah, so there was a lot of dedication, a lot of people stayed in their teams. It wasn't necessarily that, we did a lot of wandering around, clearly, as you can see, and we all ate chips at one point. Yeah, and it was what you'd expect. It doesn't look that dynamic, obviously, but it was people sitting and working for 24 hours, which is pretty important. And there's us in the background, looking, well, busy. Sorry, this is the worst music of all time, but that's just what we had. This was in the back of our game. Yeah, Nightmare Field. Yeah, so that was a laugh again. So we were sort of, we were getting to grips with the idea of working together and what it takes and what roles we were best suited to. Working on our website and blog. I'm sure you all have heard already how important social is, social media, all that jazz. People love to get involved with development these days. It's not necessarily that people like your game. If they just like what you did when you developed it, they'll probably buy it eventually, or they'll fund you on your green light or whatever. When we started off, our website was fairly god-awful, with a default WordPress site. None of us are web developers, which we've tried not to. We've tried to allay that by using as many libraries as we can, but at the start it was a bit of a mishmash. We did blog a lot, but obviously no one ever read it, but that was just for the marks. We're only recently getting used to these concepts. These are only things that we've just started to get down and kind of regiment. The best way we've found to do it so far, although we've only been doing it for about 3 days, is just having a timetable for all of this stuff. So, I mean, with all of our tweets, we each tweet once a day, either breakfast, lunch, or dinner, I guess, of the day. And if we do one interaction, whether that's posting something that's relevant or retweeting something from someone or talking to someone, then that's all you need to do. And I reckon if you get 3 things out a day, you're looking pretty active. Our website has come on leaps and bounds because of Will actually knuckling down and learning some web development, which me and Sam can't stomach. And it's basically, it's our first point of contact with any clients these days. So it needs to be slick, it needs to say what you do, and you kind of need to look trustworthy as well. And it needs to be quite up to date as well. At the moment, what everybody wants is one single page that says all the stuff about you, and you just scroll through it. So that's what we went for, and I'm sure in a few months' time it'll be something else, and we'll have to redesign. Battle Pirates version 1. So we got to the end of second year. None of us were getting a placement, and we all realised that, either because we hadn't tried hard enough to find them, or because it is actually very hard to find placements. Regardless, we knew we'd need to get some experience on our own, so we decided that what we do is we take a concept, Battle Pirates, which is something we've been throwing around for a good few months that we all really liked, and we'd separate it up into the sprints of work that we needed to do, we'd assign each other roles, and then we go home over the summer and work remotely. So we learned how to use SVN because we decided we didn't like Git. so using Tortoise SVN. We learned how to do project meetings, which was a lot of fun, progress stuff. We learned more project management using whatever tools are specific to you, whatever works for you. I mean, we always use now a thing called Kanban Flow, which is literally just a to-do list with a Pomodoro timer. If anybody doesn't know what a Pomodoro timer is, you work for 25 minutes, have a 5-minute break, you do that 4 times, and then you take a half an hour break. It is really good for our productivity, we found, but obviously it might not work for you. We tried out Pivotal, we tried out Trello. Pivotal was way too industry strength for us, we just didn't need what it could give us. Trello just didn't have a Pomodoro timer, we probably would have ended up using it if Kanban Flow didn't exist. And this is what we ended up with. We came back at the start of second year with the first demo of Bathtub Pirates, and it is pretty rough, but it is also, it does embody a lot of the concepts that we wanted Bathtub Pirates to do. The audio was all outsourced. Again, none of us are audio guys, so generally to offset that, don't try and spend a whole load of time learning how to make music, just find someone else who'll do it for you. So we do, a friend of mine, Dan from Falmouth, who's studying music with all of our BGM. This was, originally we were aiming just a computer, just a PC, sorry, so it just has desktop controls, which obviously didn't suit it that well, which we eventually worked out. But as I say, yeah, it's got a lot of our style that was evolving at the time, it's got a lot of what we wanted to put into Bathtub Pirates. So here's a good example of how our style has evolved. Really, we've stayed with clean 2D, we've just gotten a bit more stylized. Will's gotten a bit better at doing people, or, well, you just move away from realistic people.
Stark eyes.
With the cold, dead eyes. Yeah, and that lovely pose, yeah. Yeah, so obviously this is what will happen to all of your projects. You'll start off, and whether it's your programming not being quite as neat as you'd hoped, or whether it's your art, or whether it's your design, whatever it is, as you move through the years, you'll get better at it, you just naturally do. The trick is to focus on what you're good at, because that's the stuff you can get really good at. So the group project, in third year, I don't know if it's still the same since CEP, but in last year, we had a group project to do. So we turned up and Dan was like, we want you to get into a group and work on a thing. We were like, we've been working on a thing, can we do the thing? And he was like, yeah, that's fine. So that was great. That was a great head start we already had. We'd been blogging about it, we had a website, we had a prototype. So we knew that we had a head start, but we also knew that that meant more was expected of us by the end of it. So we cut out all of the fluff from our design. We made sure we knew exactly what we wanted to do, which was put Bathtub Pirates on tablet and make it incredibly solid, just a really simple game loop that just runs and doesn't break after 4 or 5 times going through it. Is enjoyable to play and feels good from the moment you start touching it. More project management as well, yeah, so we just started doing Kanban Flow. I suppose the other thing we did really was more GDSOC stuff, so we were leveraging the people who go to GDSOC for testing sessions. So we got maybe about halfway through rebuilding Bathtub from the ground up, and we brought it in and asked everyone to have a play on it, do some Google spreadsheets for us, tell us what you thought about it anonymously, which is quite hurtful but also important, which all helped to inform our development, because up until then we'd just been doing it based on what was going on, a big leg in the bath, because that was thematic and we thought it was funny. And yeah, everything looks cleaner, everything looks a bit more professional, it felt good, it was on tablets, it ran well on PC as well. So yeah, so we delivered that at the end and everybody was pretty happy with it. Business research. Towards the end of third year, we realised that we really enjoyed working together, and so we should probably do that. We would like to do that, and we thought we'd probably be quite good at it. So making use of contacts was one of the most important things, because we were like, right, we should be a business, we've got no idea how to do that, or what it entails. There are already loads of people on CGD, certainly, who can help you with that. I don't know about other courses, obviously. But people like Dan, Luke, and also Richard Weeks, who runs Total Monkery and will hopefully be coming in to speak in a couple of weeks. All people who have a lot of industry knowledge, who have a lot of good experience with running companies. We needed to get an idea of what options there were, because we didn't realise there were so many, and we also had to get rid of all of the jargon, because once you realise that lifestyle company just means a company that doesn't make much money, you're like, yeah, we could probably be that. Social enterprise, a company that gives all the money to other people, no, we probably won't do that. And business cards as well. We finally got some nice, sexy looking business cards. Sam baked us some. And obviously they're the real version of social media. I think I was moaning on at people last time I was here about how we keep getting contacted by people who we've met drunk 2 months ago and I gave a business card to. That's just how it works. And if somebody has a tangible bit of stuff that points at you, they can just go, oh, I suddenly need a game made. And I know these guys. They were very drunk, but maybe they're not all the time. We are. So while we were doing that, of course, we were still trying to hone our skills as a team. So we went to the Global Game Jam, which again was run by GDSoc. 48 hours this time. There was an emphasis on, well, for the Global Jam, there is an emphasis on meeting new people and, you know, getting their skills on board and networking and stuff. We weren't interested in any of that. What we wanted to do Global Game Jam for was to see whether we were any good as a team under pressure. So we didn't do any of the fun stuff like switching up what role you do. We were just like, right, you do the things you're good at and we'll see what we can do in 48 hours. And what we did was Henchman Hospital. The theme of the Game Jam, just so you know, some game jams are themed, was what do we do now? So we came up with the idea of this hero character has just gone through and bashed up a load of minions, and you are a doctor working in a surgery for minions who has to pick up the pieces and get them ready to fight the hero character again. So again, all about keeping your scope really small, something you can do in 48 hours. We like mobile at the moment, so we did it mobile. Apologies for the volume, I can't seem to turn it down. Oh, click jack in. No script, it's fine. Everything's fine, probably. So yeah, it was just, we wanted four or five different things you could do. Very simple, you just drag tools over and fix the guys. And we wanted it to, again, there was an emphasis on it being solid. Something you don't normally get from a game jam is something that will run for an extended period of time. This was fairly good at doing that, which was cool. We split up the work. Of course, Will was doing all of the art, and he got to experiment with a more painterly style, which I still really think is very cool. Sam was doing all, I don't think that's crashed, that's just the end of the video. Yeah. Sam was doing all of the main screen mechanics, so developing all of the actual stuff. Yeah. Oh, there is more, great. And I was working on the bottom, I was doing the procedural animation, bashing up the people and sending them to Sam's bits of the code. So again, that's something you'll learn if you have to work with other developers, is that interfaces are fun and being able to talk to each other's code without having to work too hard is always good. We were really chuffed with this. We couldn't believe how cool it was. Not to be egotistical, of course. We were really happy with it. And so we showed it off at Devon Digital, which I don't know if I'm sure you've all heard of at this point. That was really cool. It was a very solid product, and we'd like to carry on with it because of how solid it is. And of course, if we ever get any time to do anything, then we will. Our final year showcase. Anybody who's on computing, in fact probably any course, does a final year showcase. You take your dissertation project and you go and put it on, well, for computing kids normally they put it on a poster, but we got to play it, which was cool. People come around, sometimes important people, and they play your thing. We did that, obviously, as individuals, but there was a thread running through it of us being a company. So often, if people were talking to us, then we'd say, oh, go and have a look at this other Sam's project because he concentrated on something very technical, or something like that. All of our posters had the SoGoodStudios branding on somewhere. And all in all, we just told everyone we were a company, even though we hadn't made any official steps towards becoming a company. And also, I've written there, you should take every opportunity you're given, if you can, to just get coverage by anyone, I guess. It sounds like you're a bit of a shill, but that's fine. So we were asked to record some stuff for a highlight reel for the uni. So of course we did. We wanted to be involved in that. We wanted to be seen. So yeah, there's Sam showing off Will's game, Counter-Spook, which is based on a lot of the networking stuff, obviously influenced by our Sync project. And the other important thing was that loads of our other projects, including Henchman Hospital and Bath to Pirates, were running on the tablets in the middle. So despite the fact we were showing off our end-of-year project that we worked on entirely exclusively ourselves, everything else that wasn't for a person was from SoGoodStudios, effectively. So there was some very good blanket coverage. We didn't take a break. We finished our exams. In fact, Will was the last to finish an exam. And 2 days later, we went into business. Technically, we started working as though we were a company. We found out what we needed to do to get into the formation zone before we finished third year, and we already had all of that in the pipeline. We already were booked in to move in. Any of the time that we spent while we were preparing for our exams that wasn't revision was working as a company, working out what we were going to do. So this is the bit, hopefully, where I can explain some of the more weird, complex stuff about being a business and make it a bit less scary. Disclaimer, I don't know anything about business or law, so don't trust anything I say. Just take it as a kind of idea. Like I've got some links in there. I'll provide the spreadsheet, the PowerPoint to everyone. And obviously we have done it, so it can be done. But don't take anything I say, especially anything about the law, as true. Becoming a company, pretend you are one. Yeah. So one thing you'll learn is that there's a load of stuff on government websites and that might tell you need to be a company. You don't necessarily, except for some very important things like making money. You can't invoice people until you're a company. You can't have a company bank account until you're a company. But you can do all of the other stuff, the boring, hard work stuff, before that. So you can start working on whatever your IP is. You can start working on your branding on your website. You can start making connections. You can start networking. You can find premises. Admittedly, I'm sure a lot of premises require that you are actually a company. But the formation zone, because it's aimed at graduates, because it's aimed at people like us, they don't need that at all. You just sign up with your names and they'll do the company stuff as and when it happens. Talk to everyone. You probably already know a whole load of people who have fantastic business knowledge ready to be tapped by you. For us, I think probably the person who gave us the most the benefit of his experience was Steve, the guy who runs the company my dad works at. And he's a very sort of hard-nosed businessman, a real business bloke. He's been doing it for years and years. And so every time we were like, oh, I don't know what anything is, we would ring him up and he'd go, well, it's this, it's fine, don't worry about it. Being at the formation zone before we were incorporated helped, because there was loads of other people who were incorporated, who'd done it before, who could tell us what was what. Like I'm saying, you don't have to be incorporated before you start working, and being around a load of people who are in companies really helps. People love to give advice. You'll be really surprised by how people just see it as a real compliment. If you come to them and go, oh, I need someone to mentor me, then you probably won't be able to get them to shut up. They love that stuff. And you'll be amazed at the contacts you can gain. Yeah.
I had that when I went to EGX. I went to all the indie developers and everything. I just started talking to them about the course and things like that, and they just opened up completely. They were like, no, this works. You know, don't be defeated if it doesn't work on the first hurdle, because you'll have that again and again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, you will have a lot of failures before you have success.
Yeah, and that's. I mean, you'll hear that from a lot of people. It depends. I mean, that's largely the dev story, the game dev story. Excuse me. I mean, if you talk to any devs, they'll probably just talk to you about how miserable it is all the time, but it should be okay. If you talk to people who are in real jobs, like web developers or whatever, people who do boring actual IT, they'll probably tell you better ways to find clients, but finding clients is a tough one, because if you want to do games, you have to spin what you know into something that's sellable, which is why we say we do visualization and proof of concept, because a lot of the stuff that's good in games can transfer, you just have to package it the right way. But yeah, people love to give advice. and you'll be amazed the contacts you can gain. So we were chatting to Steve, and he ended up putting me on to Barn Cleve, who runs Smart Pipe, who do a whole load of publishing for big game companies. They do a lot of advertisement. We found new people through them, new useful people, and you will all too as well. It's amazing how many people there are in the world. Picking a type of company. I don't want to try and describe what all the types of companies are because I don't know what they are. We, however, are a limited company. I do almost know that much. There are a couple of important things to know about being a limited company. Your shareholders, which are, I guess, anybody you choose to have shares in your company, all have limited liability. And what that means is however much you spent on the shares when you opened up your company, that's how much you're liable for. You can lose that money. You know, if you put £400 in and bought a share or whatever, and your company decided to do some tax evasion and had to pay £1 billion back, you would lose that £400. But you wouldn't be liable for anything else. The company goes down. You don't. The company is bound by regulations and bylaws that are known as the Articles of Association. When you're on the Gov website where you have to go to set up your company, they will tell you vehemently, just use the basic ones. I can't remember what they're called, practice articles, something like that. Regardless, they have everything you need to know and they are pretty legit. It's worth having someone boring like me who will go through them and kind of work out what they all mean, because they are in a bit kind of legalese. But largely it really is just you can't push someone out by a unanimous vote. If there are 40 shareholders, you can't pass a resolution with only one of them present, that sort of thing. Very simple stuff, and stuff that will almost definitely never come up if you're in your small business. There's a limit on the number of shareholders, normally 50, and shares do not trade on the stock exchange, which I guess I don't know anything about really, but you won't be able to just trade on the stock exchange, which is fine. There is normally in the Articles of Association something called the law of first refusal, which means anybody else who is a shareholder who wants to sell their shares must first offer to sell them to you before, and if you say no, then you can sell them to someone else. And again, that's one of the safeties that the Articles of Association puts in place. If you just go through the website, the .gov website, and sign up like that, you will have all of those things in place. Where the ground gets a bit shaky is when you decide that you need extra stuff, because either you'll have to pay a lawyer to make Articles of Association for you, which will cost you so much money, or you'll have to do it yourself, and then you'll just fuck it up. I'm sure you will, unless you are a lawyer. Do it online, as I say. There's loads of resources on Gov UK. Startup Donut is fantastic. I spent loads of time on Startup Donut before we touched any of the actual real live stuff becoming a company. The model articles, that's what I mean, the standard Articles of Association, there, as I say, how resolutions are passed, how directors are appointed, and how they leave. You will have to create a statement of capital. So this has to do with shareholders. All it is really is the names and addresses of all of the people who are going to hold shares as of the start of the company, the shares that they have paid for, and clearly I had another point there, but I've just put a comma instead. So it also says how much they cost, how much each share is given, how many shares each person has bought, and how much they paid for them. If you're feeling frisky, you can have different types of shares. Different types of shares give you different powers in the company. Some shares can be non-voting. So for instance, if somebody had 1 million billion non-voting shares and I had one voting share, I would still obviously outvote them every time. Those can be good. They can be good for giving, say, if your family wanted a stake in your company, something like that. But you can find out more about that, again, startupdonut.gov.uk. Let someone else do it. We're very lucky in that Sam's brother, James, has a lot of business knowledge and was happy being our financial director. Once we'd realised we didn't have to do any of the stuff, we just gave it to him instead. It was way more fun. We didn't have to worry about doing stuff wrong and ending up in loads of debt somehow randomly. If you can't find someone to manage all your finances, then be very wary. I guess the most important things I'd say to you all, if you're going to be in a company, and if you do nothing else, register for corporation tax. So register to have the government take money off of you, because it's important that you do that. and do your tax return when asked. So the tax return is kind of a scary thing that hangs over a lot of people, and it's very confusing when you're supposed to start paying tax. I can't explain that to you because I don't have to. But what I do know is they'll send you a letter when they want a tax return. They'll go, give me a tax return please, and as long as you've got every single invoice you've ever made, every receipt and all that stuff all saved somewhere, you should be able. Contracts. Another scary thing about being in a company, if you want to start making money, is you have to have contracts with people, or you, I mean, you could not have contracts with people, but that's a really stupid idea. People can just not pay you for stuff. Instead, you want to get a good contract. There are, again, loads of places online where you can find examples of contracts. If anybody's heard of Do Contract or similarly Press Kit, Do Contract is a fantastic, totally plain English contract. You're probably only okay using it between developers. If you and, say, a sound designer want to get some work done and you just want something very simple, you can go on Do Contract and write up a contract in half an hour. One great thing that I learned from going on Do Contract is that it doesn't matter if your contract is in legalese. If your contract is in regular words, that's fine. That's still legally binding. You don't have to use legalese in order for something to be, you know, for it to work in court. And obviously, let's hope none of us ever go to court. You can also find them on places like Docracy and PandaDoc. We used PandaDoc until they wanted us to pay. And then when they wanted us to pay, I stole the doc and just put it on Google Drive instead. So you can do that. It's just text. Be very careful when you've done your first ever contract. Find someone not only who has experience, legal experience, contract experience, but who is on your side. Because, I mean, someone might point out, oh, that doesn't look legal to me, that's not correct, you've got the syntax wrong or whatever. But also someone might go, look, someone's going to take you for a ride because of this clause, you know, because of whatever you've written here, someone can extend the development time for months and months, or whatever. Find someone who wants to take the time to look through your contract. You can almost definitely get that free, or at least cheap. The Formation Zone runs a whole load of business clinics for stuff like that. You can find advice online. Obviously, take that with a bit of salt because it's online. But definitely do it. Don't just go, great, I've written a contract, let's get that signed. Does anyone? I let Will free on this PowerPoint. Yeah. Does anyone have any questions? Obviously, you can ask me afterwards anyway. But does anyone have any questions right now? Yes, Luke.
So you guys work with client work, or have you also gone and applied for like company funding, all that sort of side, sort of help you tide over?
So what we found, I spent the first maybe 5 weeks of the time that we were working on Tap Tournament. I was working on Tap Tournament a bit as well, but also I was very, very stressed about writing a business plan, because a business plan has got all this stuff about how much money you make now and how much money you plan to make. And of course, when you don't make any money and you have no idea how much money you will ever make, you're not likely to convince any banks that they should work with you, because why would they? The business plan is for getting grants, getting loans, bank loans, personal liability loans. Don't get a personal liability loan. But you don't necessarily need it straight away if you're not looking for funding. However, if you're looking for something, say, Creative England, they do funding, although it's not that good, or any of the numerous funding pots that are around for game dev, you will probably need a business plan. But the great thing about that, in that case, is that you know what you're trying to get. So you're trying to get 25 grand off someone, and you just have to tell them what you're going to do with that 25 grand. In comparison, if you're trying to get a bank loan, you need to say what your incomings and outgoings are, say why you're likely to have more money next year and next year and next year, and then you have to say it in a believable way such that they will go, yes, that's fine, you can have some money. We haven't necessarily had to do it at all so far, but that's because we're totally funded by our client work at the moment, largely because we pay ourselves nothing. Anything else? Yeah, Matt?
What kind of mistakes do you think you guys have made?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was supposed to say about mistakes, wasn't I? I was thinking about this, and I was thinking I'm really great, so we didn't make it. No. Anything that I think we should have done differently would have just been to do it earlier, and that's kind of a moot point, because we had to do all the stuff that we messed up in order to be any good at it now. We had to start bawling to people about how we didn't understand anything before they would tell us how to do the thing. And yeah, so I guess all I would say is that if you're planning to do this, do it early, learn about business early. I can't really think of anything else massively that we made mistakes, which sounds awful. I'm sure we made loads of mistakes.
Our first contract, there was a few things that we thought we were going to be trying specific, so we wouldn't get taken for a ride. Like Jack said earlier, you know, if you're not specific, people can sort of abuse the contract. And we thought we'd made like a watertight contract, and then as a V, we did leave a few things a bit more vague, and that's definitely come back to bite us a bit now. Nothing terrible, but there's something that I think we probably could have spent a bit more time looking over.
Yeah, so like I'm saying, I mean, even after we had someone check our contract, we have a client who is a very nice man and who isn't likely to try and screw us over. But like any client, he wants to get what he's paid for, and in some cases more than he's paid for according to your contract. So the spec is king. You should always let your client know that the only stuff you will deliver is what is in the spec attached to the software development agreement. No other documents to do with anything else will be, you know, considered. We unfortunately wrote some stuff that blurred those lines, and that was the problem. So we ended up doing a bit of extra work for free, or rather a discount, just, you know, to keep things smooth. But yeah, as long as you learn from those mistakes, and as long as you don't start off with a contract that says yes, we'll work forever for no money, then you're probably doing okay. You'll just make small mistakes like we did, and if you've got a good, you know, if you've got a good relationship with your client, if the people you're working with are good guys, which normally they are, and if you've been good to them, they generally won't see any reason to, you know, make you miserable. Luke again.
So you've been approached by clients and had clients with you. Have you approached clients and tried that side of marketing?
It's a difficult one. Like I'm saying, the thing with what we claim we do is because it's game dev. It's very difficult to find people who are the target. Everybody wants web development all the time, forever, 100 days, and we are always getting web development contracts thrown at us, which I always immediately forward on to James because he's the only person I know who does web development. But in our case, sort of visualization and stuff, I think you have to look for companies, you have to look for bigger clients. We're hoping to eventually leverage some of the stuff that we've got with, obviously knowing Dan, there are some people in the medical faculties who do a lot of that stuff, and who need visualization, things like that. Largely we've just been very lucky because we landed on our feet with Ryan and Real Visual, who are another company who, or no, they're not technically anymore, Real Visual, whatever they're called now, who are another body in Plymouth. Basically we got recommended to this client twice in the same day, effectively, and did the same brief twice, which was cool, because I had gone to EGX and done some volunteering, and because we knew Brian, we just happened to have a client come through. But in terms of finding other clients, that was what we were trying to do in our first couple of months, and it wasn't that fruitful, to be honest. It must be said, we were concentrating more on building Tap Tournament. So I think there could have been more into our search. We did, you know, the average stuff, getting your CVs up to date, explaining what you do on your website, pushing people at your website, giving people business cards. But largely what you kind of want to do is just have a very good rep. If you can get testimonials from clients who are happy with your work, obviously don't ask anyone who's unhappy what they think of you, because it doesn't matter. And that way, when somebody finds you, they'll go, yes, we definitely want these people to work for us. But in terms of actually canvassing for clients, it's not something we've necessarily done that much.
On that note, just briefly, we went to a few events. Like Jack said, it helped a lot going to, was it not EGX?
No, sorry, develop.
Going to develop people, because then there's other like-minded people, and people go there as well to find people to do work for them. We went to other events. We didn't get things like our business cards sorted in time. We were a bit late on that one, so if you are planning to go to an event that has a lot of game dev people in, and you want to sort of show yourself off, try and get things like business cards sorted early enough beforehand that you can take them along, because I mean, you probably hand out, 100 cards, and even if one person gets back to you, that could be a job you'd land. So it's really good just to sort of give those out there. They're prime places where you can find people who want work done, which is something we didn't do, sadly.
And obviously, another thing that's a real factor is you can't just get involved with other game devs. If you go to game shows and you go to other development events, you're just going to meet other people who are trying to do the same thing as you, and they're fairly unlikely to need your services unless they want freelancers. In comparison, what you want to do is like head down to the Devonport Guildhall, where there's a whole load of money being pumped into technology and software development, and generally people with lots of money wandering around going, "Hello, would you like some money?" Obviously it doesn't happen like that, but if you go up to people and go, "Oh yeah, we're really interested in what's happening at the Devonport Guildhall, here's our card, we'd love to get involved, we'd love to do a free class for people who want to do game development," then people go, "Oh yeah, we remember those guys, they have a really good attitude," and maybe eventually they'll decide they want to do some work with you. Jason?
How do you balance working on your own IP when you have client work?
So far we don't. That's one thing that we really haven't got the hang of, because this first bit of work we got, we had a serious deadline. Well, he had a serious deadline, and we weren't entirely sure we'd be able to meet it. So we were like, right, 6 weeks of work, all three of us will be working on it, and then we did, just non-stop for the 6 weeks. In that time, I mean, Twitter died. That was sad. Our Twitter died. We weren't doing as much Twitter stuff because we were working hard, and it's difficult when you end a day of working on somebody else's product that you might not necessarily enjoy as much, to get hype about whatever social thing you've seen. So far it's going a bit better because our work is coming in drips and drabs, and that means one or two of us is always working on our own IP at any time. And like I'm saying, we've got this new regimented social media thing that we're doing, which is working out quite well so far. What I would say though is that in the early stages, while we haven't got any money, one thing that's worth mentioning is that for the first 2 months that we worked at the Formation Zone, we were totally self-funded. That's why we were happy to work on the IP, because we were spending our own money. But for the first bits, while you haven't got a year's worth of operational costs in the bank, take client work over doing your own IP. I mean, it's unfortunate because the game that you love and you burn in to make it and you can't wait to give it to everyone won't get done, because we doing other stuff that will make you money and will allow you to eat. But that's fine, because eventually, once enough people know that you're great at doing the client work, you'll just be able to go, right, we need some money, let's do a bit of work for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll suddenly have enough to do another 2-week sprint on the game we want to put out, or buy a fantastic trailer from someone. Not as in like a car trailer, as in like, yeah. Where was I? One thing I would say, I keep saying that, I'm saying many things. Use your student finance money. That's something that I think that we did that was fairly canny. We got out of exams and immediately started working, which meant we had 2 months of money we hadn't earned, money from the state, paying for our housing and for everything we ate, and our premises. Which was great. It meant we had 2 months to do stuff with, and if we hadn't had that 2 months, there's no way we ever would have gotten to the point where we could have a client, gotten to the point where any of our branding looked good, gotten to the point where we looked professional, and have a bit of stuff done with Tap Tournament as well. So yeah, use what you have wisely, and maybe start saving now. I know that's hard at university, but you know, yes.
Is it worth having someone sort of dedicated to the website side of things then? So you literally have someone to do.
It's a tough one. Like I'm saying, the great thing about the style of website that people want at the moment is you can do it with Bootstrap really simply, and people just want one page, nothing fancy. Well, you can do fancy stuff if you want, but really it's just like an info dump. People just want to be able to scroll down and see all the things you do, or the most important things you do, how you do them, and how they can contact you.
Yeah, I've done it previously, that's why I asked about it.
Right, yeah.
If
you've got the skill already,
yeah,
then awesome. And if you can convince someone on your team to go and get the skills, again, awesome.
Yeah, in our case, none of us have really done web before, so I went out of my way for a few weeks, just sort of trying different things. Just because at the beginning, you might not, like, I didn't really know any proper web stuff, so I spent, some weekends just solely working on it. And it might be a lot to begin with, like I probably spent about 2 or 3 whole weekends just going over it, seeing how I could make it better, fast. I asked people from the ISS team as well. And when we had it sorted, it might have taken us, those 5 to 6 full days of work just to have a website up. But since then, we haven't really had to go back. Like, it might be a lot of work to start with, but then any small changes, images, or extra pages, it takes practically no work. And like Jeff said, because it's such a simple page, people just want one sort of sliding page with a few sections on different parts of your company, it really doesn't take much to keep running. So it's a nice initial investment for not much work.
And Will was saying about putting the weekends in. You'll all end up doing that eventually if you're working for yourselves. There'll be skill acquisition you need to do, but you'll be working on your client work during the day, so you have to do it in the evening. So similarly, Will does all of our front end web stuff. Excuse me, sorry. I handle the back end stuff. So I do all of our web admin stuff, dealing with the server as best I have to. And I learned as much of that as I needed to get our website working, and then I have ignored anything else. I don't need to know anymore because we're not web devs. I think a lot of proper cutting-edge web development has to do with exactly what's new right now, and we haven't got the time to know that, and it's not worth our time. We won't make money from that. But if you have someone who has like a closet interest in building a fucking sweet website that'll make everyone think you're cool, then free. Hire them quickly, or maybe just contract them for a week to build your website.
Make friends.
Well, did I do that? So
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome.
Cool.
I think that's it then.
Are we done? Sweet.
Cool, yeah.
Yeah, thank you all.